Hi, my name is Gerhard Schwantner and welcome to Selling Power TV. Today we have the pleasure of meeting with Norman Behar. He is the CEO of the Sales Readiness Group. Welcome, Norman.
Gerhard, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Can you educate us on how to develop frontline sales managers faster, better, cheaper?
So let me start with the most important word that you use there, which is better, because really the focus is on developing better sales managers. Obviously, we leverage technology. We think we can help accelerate that. But the real key is having better sales managers. And I'll probably start, Gerhard, by really talking a little bit about the career trajectory of a sales manager.
Right, because a lot of salespeople that are really doing well become sales managers.
Right, so we're not necessarily giving an opinion as to whether that's a good thing or not a good thing, but the reality is that most sales managers come from the sales ranks.
Yeah.
And if you think about a salesperson, that's about being a great individual contributor. So I know a lot of people talk about salespeople as being a team player, and certainly they should be, but when you look at the skills that they need on a day-to-day basis, prospecting skills, developing proposals, negotiation, presentation skills, it's really about them as a salesperson. Then all of a sudden their career is progressing and one day they're promoted into sales management. Well, if you think about a sales manager, a very different set of skills. These sales managers are now having to drive performance through others. So it's no longer about their individual skills, although they should be hopefully carrying forward their communication and interpersonal skills. But now it's really about how do I lead a team, how do I motivate them, how do I manage them, how do I recruit and hire them, and how do I really develop them into a high-performing team.
Right.
So it's a different mindset, and we think that one of the ways to your second question in terms of how can you do it faster is by having a program to support them. And if you think about a lot of companies today, they have great sales training programs, they have leadership development programs, but nothing that really gets to the crux of the issue as to, as a sales manager, what are the skills I need to manage my team on a day-to-day basis?
And I think that there are really two issues. One is to help the newly appointed sales manager to learn the new skills. But also, they need coaching on how to unlearn the skills and not to apply them and not sell for salespeople and doing their job.
So let's start with the second one you mentioned, the unlearning, because I think you and I were having a conversation earlier about building blocks, and that in today's information overload, sometimes you kind of have to forget or at least put in the background what you've learned. So when you become a sales manager, you're probably still focusing, if you're going on a joint sales call, how am I going to close business? You're starting to focus on your individual abilities. When you become a sales manager, you have to unlearn some of that or at least put in the background, because now you're going to drive performance through others. And then what are the skills that you need now? You need to learn how to coach people. You need to learn how to manage performance. You need how to recruit and select people. And eventually to develop your own leadership abilities to become the best leader you can be.
Right. And also there are two things that change. One is the conversation changes, but the language also changes. When they're salespeople, they talk to customer. And they constantly think about how do I close that deal. But when they talk to a salesperson, then they need to think about how can I end the unproductive behavior and how do I activate the real behavior that I need.
So I think what you're getting to is really gaps in behavior. And certainly they need to focus on gaps and areas for improvement. But the first thing I would say is if you want to make a salesperson better, focus on the areas they're doing well. So if you want to, it's just no different in sports. Before you start coaching on things that they can improve on, really let's make sure we're getting maximum leverage of the things they're doing well.
And another question I have is when sales managers talk to their team, they usually talk in terms of, this is what I'm doing and you should be doing the same because I was the top sales rep. You can do that too.
So I think that's what I'll call the superstar syndrome. If you were a star athlete, you know, you can't really empathize with others. If they're struggling, you're saying, well, hey, this is how I used to do it. And I think that that's a symptom of not having a coaching culture and the sales manager not understanding their role. What they'd be much better off doing is talking to others on the team and saying, hey, let's take a look at some of the best practices. So who here really has a high win ratio on their proposals? Well, what are they doing?
Tell me about the success you've had with helping sales managers make that step where you've been personally involved.
So your individual performance in the future is going to be measured by the performance of your team. And we've had a lot of success, and recently this is probably our most popular area right now, is helping companies develop better sales managers, because you think back on the recession that we hopefully are just coming out of, it really exposed a lot of flaws in sales teams. And people said, okay, well, how are we going to make these teams better? And they realized that the maximum leverage they can get is through the sales manager. The sales manager typically has somewhere between 7 and 10 direct reports. Imagine if they can just incrementally improve that performance some, it's going to have an exponential effect on results.
Right. Because if one sales manager can improve 10 salespeople do 10% better, the impact can be tremendous.
The impact's going to be huge.
Thank you, Norman. We're going to continue our conversation with Norman tomorrow, where we talk about how to create a sales coaching culture.